I'm Allison Moon, and welcome to 90 Days of Self-Publishing. This is the final week's part 2 section, so again, it might be maybe a little bit longer than my older videos, but I wanted to try and get a lot of information to you in one big video because, again, my technical difficulties made it impossible for me to do a daily devotional like I had before. So again, thanks for bearing with me. And as I've been getting back home, I'm back home now after my little mini tour down in Southern California and New York. And now that I'm home, it's allowed me to kind of get back into the swing of things a little bit, get back into my old routine, which I really, really appreciate. And also reflect a little bit about things that I would like to do better for the next time around. So I would like to tell you some mistakes that I made and maybe some things that I'd like to do for the sequel. The first off is, in terms of the writing of the book, I'm thrilled to be actually getting to work really on the meat of the sequel now. I've got a lot of great ideas coming in. It feels so good to be back in my writer's mode. I've mentioned this a couple times, but if this is one of the first videos of mine you're seeing, this is the thing that I think that writers have to consider the most. And this goes kind of beyond the ethics and the day-to-day and all the other issues around whether self-publish or traditionally publish. The interesting thing is that had I not self-published, I could have spent all summer working on my sequel. Instead, I spent all summer typesetting, copy editing, doing all the necessary steps required to get my book out. And that was a big sacrifice because as a writer, I like to write. That's my number one. That's my favorite thing to do. Everything else was supporting that, but not being able to write every day felt like a loss. And I think a lot of authors can kind of question whether or not self-publishing is right for them because do you want to just give it up and just have somebody else deal with the cover and have somebody else deal with all the editing and whatnot and just work on the next book? Or do you want to be involved in that process creatively? Do you want to have control over the look and the feel of the final book? That's a big question to ask yourself, and you really have to think about it because, again, like I've spent 5 months on these projects, and those 5 months could have been spent writing and really finishing my sequel. So that's one thing, but it's really nice to be back into it. In terms of things that I would do differently for the second book, I really enjoyed how much I learned about the writing process. This was my first novel ever, and I know a lot of writers they write one novel and then they bury it, and then the second novel that they write is actually the real one that they debut with. So I definitely made a serious choice and a big risk by putting my first book out there in the world. And of course, now that I'm getting feedback, I'm learning a lot about how the book could have been better and how my sequel will be better. One thing is I'm really starting the action much earlier in the second book. I'm really mindful about the first 10 pages in a way that I wasn't for the first book. And because I got a lot of the kind of the work done in the first book, got a lot of the kind of feminism 101 that I think was essential for people to understand in order to be able to understand the world of the women that are in this book. Now that I've got that out of the way, I'm able to kind of get into the meat of the story a little bit more, and I'm really excited about that because there's a lot of stuff that I want to throw in there. And another thing that I learned is that I don't want to hold back. In the first book, I had a lot of great ideas, but because I was conceiving this as a series, I actually decided to kind of I'll save that for the second book, or I'll save that for the third book. And honestly, in retrospect, that's not the best choice. I mean, obviously one has to edit and make choices, but I would much rather throw everything into the book and hone it and craft it and turn it into a slick, fancy-looking thing, rather than hold back and have the readers feel like I'm holding something back. So in the second book, I've got a lot of really exciting things that are going on, and I have all sorts of ways of conceiving it. I feel like it's going to probably be 2 parts, not very long necessarily, but it will be some big thematic stuff that's going to happen in the sequel, and I'm really excited about that. From a print book perspective, I think that I will spend more time now that I've been able to really figure out so many things, formatting an ebook, and now that I know how to typeset, a lot of this stuff is going to come a lot faster to me. There was a learning curve that I had to deal with in the beginning, and now that I can know how to do it, typesetting is going to be a breeze next time, and as I expect, all sorts of the other aspects of the printing. So in terms of other things I would change, I think I'm going to probably buy a font next time, a font that I like a little bit more. This font was good, but it didn't have a lot of the stuff that I needed, like italics and M dashes and things that kind of are essential. So it added a lot of time to my typesetting of the first book to have to go back and find all the italics and do that and blah, blah, blah. I would give more time to the editing process and more time to pretty much the whole process, because I was working on a tight deadline. And I do have a deadline for the sequel. I want it to be out by spring of 2013, which again is, you know, not much time when you're saying that I'm creating the whole book and I'm only on chapter 5 in the writing of it. So there's a lot of, you know, work that I'm going to be putting into it. So I would like to have budgeted a little bit more time around the first round so that I could have, you know, not freaked out again about my books coming on time and things like that. So there's that. And also some little small things like having a little bit more time of graphic design for the cover so that we could tweak things. I love my cover. Don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous. But there are a couple things I would have tweaked if I had the chance. So things like that. Line spacing, font size, really indulging in the proof process and figuring out the full aesthetic of it and making changes, having more time and more energy to expend around that. I was so exhausted by the end that the proof I proofed, obviously, and I got it to a place where there are very few typos and very few problems with the text. But I would have liked to have been able to kind of figure out, like, do I want to space the lines like a couple more points apart, things like that. So those are the big ones that came out to me. I definitely have some thoughts. I mean, there was another big one is having the book done in time to actually send it out for advanced reader copies for reviews is great and really useful, and I didn't have a chance to do that. My book was pretty much ready the same month that it was coming out, and that meant that a lot of people wouldn't review it. Most people want to be able to review a book 3 months before it comes out, and because I didn't get them, I missed out on those reviews, which is disappointing. And again, that's the kind of thing that a professional publisher, a traditional publisher, or commercial publisher, would take care of for me if had I gone with someone else. But because I did it on my own, I missed the big opportunity there to get reviews and all sorts of things. So again, live and learn. I don't have any real regrets around this. I'm happy that I could learn from this process, and I'm happy that I can look forward to doing this again, having the learning curve handled, and ready to do it even better than the first time. So that's that for now. I will record probably one more video to kind of wrap up this whole thing. And again, if you have any questions for me, please do email me at moon@talesofthepack.com. I'm going to be actually putting my Self-Publishing 101 audio class on my website soon. So if you want to hear all this stuff condensed into like a 90-minute workshop, check that out. It'll probably be online just before Thanksgiving. So again, thanks for joining me, and thanks for the mad props, and thanks for those of you who've been sharing this with your friends and family and colleagues. It makes me feel really good to know that people are watching and enjoying these videos. So thanks, appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.